Hey first graders, and welcome back to the outdoor classroom for today's science lesson. Today we are going to revisit something we covered earlier on in the year, where we're going to talk about balance. Now, as we work on our balance, there's some vocabulary words I would like you to listen for throughout this lesson. Our vocabulary words that I would like to have you listen for during this lesson are 1. Balance point. Listen for me to use the word balance point during that lesson. 2nd, stable. Think about what it means to be in a stable position and listen for that word during the lesson. And finally, counterweight. You may already have your schema activating, thinking of the things that you know about counterweights. I'm now going to give you about 30 seconds to think about what you know about those 3 words. Think about what you know about the balance point, a stable position, and the use of counterweights. Take some time now to think about what you know about those 3 words. Is your brain going? Are you already thinking about balance point, counterweights, keeping a stable position? Well, let's get started with our lesson then. Today I've brought a few of our cutouts that look familiar to the ones that we used in class this year. Now what I'm going to attempt to do is I'm going to attempt to find the balance point of these 2 objects. The balance point is the point at which I can set my object and have it balance in a stable position. If I try to set the balance point maybe here at one of the corners, you'll see, make a prediction, what do you think will happen? See if I can get it straight up and down. Let's see if this is a stable position. It didn't work. I'm trying to find the proper balance point or place that I can get this object to balance in a stable position. There's that word again. The stable position will mean I've found a balance point and a setup where the object isn't wiggling back and forth, or like it's tried the first 2 times, just falling over. So I'm going to try this a few more times, looking for the proper balance point. Maybe the corner wasn't a good option, maybe the side. It's not working. Maybe I'll try this corner. Oh, it looks maybe symmetrical. Let's see. It's not working. Maybe one of the flatter edges, this longer edge, might work. It's not really that windy today, and I'm really having a hard time getting it to balance. Maybe I'll switch over to this horseshoe shape and see if I can find the balance point here. Again, trying to find a stable position with a balance point. What do you think will happen if I do one of these sides? Think it'll work? No, I'm struggling to find that balance point in a stable position. Hey, I've used the word balance point, stable, but I haven't yet used that word counterweights. Maybe counterweights is the key to getting these 2 objects to be in a stable position, to find the right balance point. I'm going to think back to our lessons earlier on in the year where we used our counterweights to find the stable position. I remember we used clothespins to attach to these objects to help find the balance point. Let's try. I today brought these 2 magnet clips that I found on our refrigerator. Again, during this crazy time, we're just going to have to get creative with the materials that we have at home. If you don't have these, you might have hair clips that maybe your family has or you have. You may also have some clothespins or other materials. Anything that you can attach to the objects will help you find that balance point. So today, I'm going to go back to my triangle. And again, I'm finding the balance point in a stable position. And what I haven't tried yet is the use of these counterweights. So let's try. I'm going to try to get this object to balance on the tip of this triangle using the counterweights. So let's go ahead and try. Let's attach here and here and make a prediction. Do you think this object will balance on its point in a stable position when I let go? Make a prediction now. Let's try. I'm holding steady. I'm trying to find the balance point on this vertices, this corner of this object. I'm noticing that my counterweights are hanging above the balance point. They are above the balance point. Let's see if that works. Let's try one more time. As scientists, we look carefully to see what is happening. I'm noticing when I let go, it flops right over. Maybe if I move the counterweights down, that may help me find a stable position. Now, the clip is attached just above the balance point, but most of the weight is hanging here below the balance point. Make a prediction. What do you think will happen this time? I've done it. The counterweights hang below the balance point. Even with the little breeze that's happening out here, it's hanging in a stable position from its balance point using the counterweights. Let's try the other shape. We'll switch over to our horseshoe shape here. And great scientists use what they've learned from other trials to help them with this one. So I'm thinking the counterweights are going to need to go below the balance point again to find the stable position of this horseshoe shape. So for our horseshoe shape, I'm going to actually start first time with using the inside cutout here and see if this would be a balanced, stable position. Now, look at most of this shape. Most of this shape hangs down below my balance point. Let's make a prediction on what will happen without the use of counterweights this time. Wow, that's really interesting. I didn't have to use the counterweights this time. The reason that I don't need the counterweights this time is because most of my shape is hanging below the balance point. The shape itself is acting as a counterweight. But let's try it another way. Let's go to the upside down U shape and see if we can get this to balance in a stable position. So, it's kind of like my beard. Let's try this position, see if we can find it in a stable position without the counterweights. Let's try. What do you think is going to happen? Not happening. Maybe if I move the balance point over. It's just not happening. There is a little bit of a breeze, but that's not the problem. The problem is that the entire object is sitting above the balance point. I'm going to bring out our counterweights. Let's pull out our counterweights and try to attach them here. What do you notice about the counterweights as they relate or compared to the balance point? Again, I'm trying to balance down here. The counterweights are currently above the balance point. So make your prediction on what you think is going to happen. Ready for our test? Watch closely. Fell backwards that time. Let's try another direction here. Tip to the side that time. I'm noticing my problem with the counterweights again. They're above the balance point. Let's try and pull them down. Again, they're attached above the balance point, but most of the weight is hanging below. What do you think is going to happen this time? Watch closely. I have found a stable position. Using the counterweights, hanging them below the balance point helps me to find a stable position for these items. Great. Now that we have revisited, did you hear the words balance point, stable, and counterweights throughout that lesson? Keep those in your mind because you're going to need them for our next challenge. For the rest of today's lesson, you're going to find some items that you're going to use to create a balanced sculpture tomorrow. So the items that I have found today include things that I can find just around the house. So I went through the kitchen and I thought a marshmallow might be a great center for my balanced sculpture. This is what I'm going to build my sculpture around. My challenge is going to be to get this marshmallow to balance on my finger, to find the balance point of this marshmallow on my finger. So thinking ahead, we're going to create sculptures that will balance on your finger or on top of a table or hanging off of a table, but to find a stable position for your item using the items that you've collected. Now you might try something, you might gather some items and go through some tests and trials, and it might just not work. That's okay. If the items that you selected don't work, feel free to try some other things. But always check in with your parents and your family, who's ever helping you with this lesson, to make sure that they're items that are safe to use and items that are okay to use for this activity. Listen to your parents or your families as they work through this lesson with you. So the things that I gathered: 1, something that I can use as the center of my object. 2, I'm going to gather some items that I can use to sort of stick things together. I chose the marshmallow because I'm going to be able to stick these toothpicks into them, as well as some chopsticks. And again, I'm going to use my clips here as counterweights. Now you may use other things that you find around your house as well. You might use some paper clips with things attached. You might use a water bottle. You might use anything that you can find in the kitchen or in your room. But again, check in with your families. So I gathered some marshmallows, some toothpicks, some chopsticks, and some clips that I think I can use as the counterweights. As soon as you have something for the center of your sculpture, some way of attaching it like toothpicks or chopsticks, and some counterweights, gather those up and set them aside for tomorrow. Because tomorrow, you're going to take what you've learned about balance point, stable positions, and counterweights to create your own sculpture. Look out for my challenge tomorrow. I'll model how I use these materials, and then you'll have some time to get creative and work through your science balance sculpture. Thanks for joining me today. Look out for our lesson tomorrow.